Remember all that stuff? That wasn't the line. This was.
Because, as I said the other day, we're not just dealing with a problem in 2014. We're not dealing with years of racism leading up to it or decades of racism. We are dealing with centuries of racism that have brought us to this day. That is how profound the crisis is.
Really? Centuries? What's worse, the President of the United States agrees with him. To Bishop Hugh Jackson, who doesn't, with either. Bishop, holy cow. I couldn't believe my ears. What'd you think?
Neil, it's preposterous. What happened in New York is not the result of 3 centuries, however many centuries of racial oppression. It's the result of a young man having made the decision to resist arrest. And when you do that, things are not going to end well. It's tragic. It's terrible. But how about teaching these young people, when the police make a request, cooperate with them rather than resisting them?
You know, Bishop, I think an argument can be made that this non-grand jury indictment rattles folks a little bit more because people back and forth can quibble whether the guy had in fact resisted or whatever. I don't even think that matters as much as drawing the centuries remark in and the slavery and the victimhood thing in, because you are then egging people on to say, you know, despite having an African-American in the White House, despite in New York City, his predecessor some couple of decades ago was an African-American, despite all the progress now with 2 new additions, including the first African-American elected senator from the heart of the Confederacy in South Carolina, despite all of that, none of that mattered. Beyond stupid.
Neil, despite having the chief law enforcement officer of the nation be black, the Attorney General of the United States. And Neil, look, I'm 62 years old, probably don't look a day over 61, but I've had 100 or more interactions with police, and I have never had a police officer mistreat me because I don't mistreat them. We've got to start talking about teaching young people how to behave themselves with respect. That doesn't mean that we want people to die or that this is a good thing, but it means there's responsibility on the side of individuals in their interactions with police.
Well, the one thing, I mean, despite their, viewpoints or what have you, I think that those in power are kind of showing their true colors. It's not a black or white thing. It's a very progressive thing. It's a victim thing. It's that you have been really hosed here thing. And I'm wondering if that serves anyone any good, particularly the African American community, where you can make a lump sum generality and just say, yeah, Whitey's still after us.
Neil, these young people need jobs, they need education, they need stable families, they need guidance, they need direction. What they don't need is to be given one more excuse for why they can't make it. Neil, I love this country. This is the most wonderful place in the world to live. We need to start getting that message out to our young people. You can do and be anything you want to be. Charles Payne, your good friend, is an example of that, and I know many, many others who are.
Yeah, Charles Payne is way overrated, no offense and all, but no, actually, Bishop, you're quite right. You know, Bishop, here's what worries me, though. There is a trend and a mentality developing now in the media aftermath of this to see it only through that racist prism. And I'm the first to say, and I'm sure you've dealt with this yourself, trying to grab a cab at night, that you're going to have more of a difficult time than I would. And that's not fair or right, but there is a line between getting offended by that and being violent because of that. And I think that that is a message emboldened by federal officials and a New York City mayor who all but say this must stop. We're going to launch federal probes. We're going to right this clear wrong because you idiots on the local level screwed it up, right?
And Neil, how about a white guy trying to make a delivery into a tough black community? Look, life is not perfect and it's not fair, and we want to do everything we can to make things fair. But in the meantime, you got to decide what you're going to do with your life as an individual and then get about the business of doing it rather than blaming racism and Jim Crow. You know, as I've said, Michael Brown is not Emmett Till. Al Sharpton's not Martin Luther King Jr., and these officers are not the KKK. We're living in a different world. It's about time we come to grips with that.
All right, but let me ask you this finally. When the mayor made the centuries in the making remark, and I'm thinking over the centuries, and you're closer to this, Bishop, than I'll ever be, I see improvements along racial lines, and I see all of these officials you referred to who once it seemed inconceivable they could be in power and the jobs they have now. A credit, I think, to our country and where we progressed. But I may be missing something. What do you think?
No, Neil, you're not. And I think what's happened is that emotion trumps truth. And people would much rather live with the sense that they're still under the same oppression that black people lived under 150 years ago. And we need new leadership that will get the message out that, no, our country is free and prosperous, and you can make anything of yourself that you decide to make of yourself. And we just need to encourage young people with that message.
Bishop, thank you very much. I just thought I'd have the bishop on because I was hearing all the coverage one way on this. I mean, just one way. Not right. This isn't right either. You see this? Hands up, don't shoot. Now it's the president of Penn State doing it, and a scene that's been repeated on Capitol Hill by the players of the St. Louis Rams. Now, ironically, it conflicts with grand jury evidence, certainly out of Ferguson, where all the African-American witnesses say it didn't happen. That it never happened, that the victim never did raise his arms, and he was not shot from behind. Now, to be fair, there were a couple of white witnesses who said otherwise, but overwhelmingly the witnesses said it just didn't occur, yet it became fact, and it became just assumed, accepted reality. But it wasn't the reality. And attorney Lisa Giovinazzo says great danger in doing so. Troy Slayton disagrees. So you don't like what's been perpetrated here.
No, not at all. I think that we really have to look at what this means. Hands up. The universal language means I surrender, don't shoot. So using that as a symbol, I mean, there's a lot of political activists that are using it.
Well, what they're saying is, hands up, I was still shot.
Well, exactly. And we're rehashing all of the information that was provided to the grand jury. And the grand jury came out, and they came out with their decision. No true bill. There wasn't a probability that a crime was committed. And yet this hands up is damaging because it actually has a meaning. It's not just a symbol that's being used by people that want to support Brown's family. It has a meaning, and it says that somebody was shot that surrendered, and that's just not accurate, and it could lead to a lot of problems.
Troy?
The hands up symbol and the movement that's now been developed that's come out of this, it's not just about Michael Brown. It's about looking into police practices, and that's a good thing. It's about examining whether police are using excessive force, sometimes deadly force, to effectuate an arrest.
No, it's not, Troy.
It's
about perpetuating a fiction, something that never happened. The overwhelming number of witnesses who testified before the grand jury said it never happened. I mean, you're just perpetuating a myth. You're perpetuating something that didn't happen. And now you're trying to aggrandize it to say, well, no, we're making a far bigger statement here than just Ferguson. That was not the intention at all.
Actually,
freedom of expression, freedom of speech.
Freedom of
these are things enshrined in our Constitution.
Accurate expression, because a lot of impressionable kids are going to see that and just say, well, that is what happened. The poor kid raised his hands and he was still gunned down. And don't tell me that he wasn't shot in the back. He most certainly was shot in the back. And I could go on and on. And I just think it's dangerous.
Well, and let's look at it. Before the whole Ferguson incident, when did people do this? People didn't put their hands up. And that's the question. It's the whole definition, and what they're trying to get at is a lot of people out there that are protesting, they're joining these rallies, and there are people on the street. It just happened in Staten Island the other day. You ask them why they're here. Some people don't know what the hands up means. They don't even know the person that they're there to represent.
Oh, I think they know it. And Troy, you're a very smart lawyer, and I take nothing against you. Your passionate views, and I respect that, as I do you. But here's my concern. People will start looking at this and take as a given that this is what transpired in Ferguson, and they will take as a greater given And maybe with greater excuse, given the fact that this New York case was different, and many smart lawyers told me that this officer in New York should have been indicted. That's neither here nor there, as much as the notion that it's a rigged process, it's a racial process, it's that you can put your hands up and still get shot, or still get killed, or still get choked, or still have a heart attack because an authority pounced on you. And that, I think, is a very, very dangerous signal.
Neil, the original protest in Ferguson, yes, was about Michael Brown. But the protests, the movement that we've seen sprung up all over this country, it's much bigger than Michael Brown. This is about looking at the police.
Why doesn't it extend to that white Bosnian guy who gets into a confrontation with some African-American kids and gets hammered to death? Why not apply that then? He should stick up, people should stick up a hammer in the air and just protest in rage? I mean, you're making this racial, even though you say it's not racial.
What happened to that Bosnian is horrible. But this is about
the white teenager in New Jersey. The white teenager. I could go on and on. So why are you playing favorites with this?
We need to be looking at the way that the police are using force, sometimes deadly force, to effectuate arrests and contact with members of the public.
How about the white police's slow response to both of the white incidents I just told you about?
But that's the point. You're using hands up now.
Absolutely.
But you're saying hands up now is an anti-police symbol, and it shouldn't be. That shouldn't happen. The hands up should not be anti-police. Hands up is a universal symbol for I surrender. And it's taken on a new meaning, and you're empowering it by saying it's okay to utilize it in this way. And we're going back and we're rehashing and we're saying that the grand jury got it wrong, everybody that's doing this. And we have to respect the process. It's not going to help anybody.
Just because you put your hands up, Lisa, just because you put your hands up and you have solidarity with the movement doesn't mean that you think that the police
with a
did anything
movement that's
wrong.
based on fiction. Quit saying that you have solidarity with a movement over something that didn't happen. It didn't happen.
The movement is happening. There's
I know
no
the
doubt
movement's
that there
happening.
are
The movement is
protests
built
all over.
on a myth.
Well, but that's the point, and the movement is built on a political activism.
Guys, I wish we had more time.
Case.
I'm not even going to tease what's next because I'm outraged by this. I want every American home, I don't care what side you are on this, to step back, calm down, quit fanning flames. Let's just fan our minds and our thoughts. What is fair, what is right, what is decent, what is us. Stick around.